Hello everyone and welcome back to the Bantamweight Boxing YouTube channel with your host Michael Waite. I hope you're all doing well. The news has just dropped about Eubank versus Conor Benn being postponed. Funny use of the term that, rather than cancelled, it says postponed, which, kind of implies that the fight will happen at some point. But it was big news, so I had to get the shirt on. I was actually in my own clothes. But I went to the wardrobe, put the shirt on because I was like, this is big news that I need to cover. So, obviously, you've all heard Conor Benn has failed a drug test, a voluntary drug test by UCAD, I believe. His A sample has come back testing for, I was going to say chloroform, but it's definitely not that. That would be very dodge. But he's tested positive for a fertility drug, which I think from what we hear is a masking agent. I've heard Brock Lesnar was taking it at one point in his career or whatever, so I think that is all you really need to hear. If Brock Lesnar's on it, then that's a no-go. In technical terms, I'd say. So yeah, that's come out. It's been postponed. What are my initial thoughts? Well, obviously I'm gutted. Not looking at the emotional side of drug testing and all of that stuff. Just as a fight fan, this was a fight I was really, really excited for. It wasn't a fight I was expecting, but I got drawn into it. I saw the build-up. I saw Eubank did a great job in the whole build-up, the whole 60% stuff with, eating cake, saying this is going to be light work. I think he sold the fight really well. And I was really bought into it. So knowing now that it's off is, pretty gutting. Also, in terms of the sport itself, it's not a great look for boxing. Obviously, making boxing YouTube videos, I'm a massive advocate for the sport, but it does get a hard time for things like this, the drug testing and a lot of kind of PED use and all of that. So this doesn't help the overall reputation of it and that kind of idea that, it's a bit of a blood sport or whatever, which I just obviously don't buy into. So in that sense, yeah, pretty gutted about all of that. What's the fallout of all of this? Well, it's pretty bad all round. The first thing you got to look at is Conor Benn's reputation. Now, Conor Benn was a bit of a rising star, if not a star already, loved by the UK fight fans, had been built up by DAZN really well. I don't think he's technically the best fighter we've seen, but amassed an incredible following, had the father figure, had the history of Nigel Benn, etc., carrying on that incredible legacy. Very likable guy, very personable, entertaining in the ring. So he was a great fighter and had a long career ahead of him, and I'm sure he still does. But when you get called out for PEDs, it's not a good look, and you can already see on social media the tide has turned for Conor Benn. There's a lot of hate out there, so it's not looking good for his reputation. Whatever he does now throughout his career, that there will always be that thought of, are you on the substances? Are you on the gear? Were you on the gear before with your other wins, etc.? So it's just not a good look for him. That's one fallout. The others is for DAZN. This is a big hit for DAZN. They are not in a great place at the moment. They've had a rough year or so. AJ losing to Usyk, not great. AJ Fury fight falling apart. That was a fight they really needed. Conor Benn now testing for PEDs, one of their star boys, the real poster boy for DAZN, especially in the UK. And then Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank falling apart, which was one of their biggest cards. Like, if you look at their cards recently, they're not blowing you away. They're not incredible. So it's a rough time for DAZN and Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, obviously he's just the promoter. He's had nothing to do with it. He doesn't know what Conor Benn's sniffing. That's, it's got nothing to do with him, but it's never going to look good on you when it's your fighter. You've also, this doesn't get a lot of thought, but the undercards, think about all of those fighters. Like, a lot of these fighters are not big names, smaller fighters trying to make a name for themselves, just looking for that payday, needing that. This is their livelihood. They haven't got the following of a Eubank and a Benn to just bounce back. They need these fights, etc. And also, you've deprived them of a fight on a main stage, the O2 Arena. there's been so many cases of fighters on those lower undercards having a crazy good performance, you know, filthy first round knockouts, things like that, which you're flicking through and you go, fucking hell, he looks decent. I watch another one of his fights, you know, they're deprived of that opportunity now. And the financial side. So it does beg the question. It does beg the question: should they be reimbursed? Should there be some financial side of that? I'm sure they'll be looked after and put on another card. But the reason why I raise that as well is, you know, this is what happens when in this modern day boxing where the undercards just aren't that great. Like when you skimp out on these undercards and you just go for the main event, if an injury happens, if someone gets popped for PEDs, whatever, you have to just pull the card because no one's going to pay the money or tune in. You know, I was actually going to go and watch Dillian White versus Otto Wallin. That, again, was a pony undercard. But I was like, the fight itself might be quite good. I'll go and watch it. The fight got pulled because of an injury. And they just had to pull the whole card because they knew no one would come and see it. So... yeah, that, you know, one reason for that. And then obviously the main person fallout of this is Eubank, man. Like, you know, been training for 3 months, training hard. He's missing out on a massive payday now. Will this fight still happen in the future? Who knows? He was obviously keen to still get the fight going. Shows how much, you know, these fights mean to him. He was happy to take that risk. What other things we need to discuss? You know, that was looking at the fallout. Obviously the big question to ask is, was it the right move? Of course it was the right move. These fights can't go, they just can't go ahead, and it shouldn't be down to the promoters. It shouldn't be down to the fighters. This is why we have, you know, boxing board of control, these kind of regulators, because if someone tests positive for a PED, the fight needs to be pulled because, you know, if the fight went ahead and Benn did some serious harm to Eubank, that, again, just reflects so badly on the sport. You know, it's a dangerous sport out there. So definitely the right decision. How do I want it to proceed going forward? Well, I want to see this B sample. Whether this fight, whatever happens, whether this fight, well, we know it's not going ahead now, but if it happens in the future or whatever, or if the fight is completely cooled off, I don't want this swept under the rug. I want to see where this B sample is and I want to see what the results are. You know, I'd bet a lot of money on this B sample going missing and this kind of getting swept under the rug. I could see that happening, but hopefully not. But yeah, it's the right decision. You know, it's obviously awful for the boxing. It's a massive fight we're missing out on, but it has to be done. How do I think the kind of DAZN have handled it and stuff like that? Well, you know, Eddie, not saying he's the complete oracle and has the final say, but I think, you know, he's done the right thing by making sure the fight doesn't go ahead. Has he come out in the best light? Of course, no, not really. I think where he messed up a little bit is he didn't have to say that the fight was off straight away, but he should have really just said, look, we're going to do some investigations, and then called it off himself. But it seemed like he was almost forced to do it. And if he had his own way, he would have kept the fight on. I don't know. That's how it kind of perceived to me. So I don't think he really came out in the best light as well. But yeah, we'll see what happens. You know, can they make the rematch? Yeah. You know, if the B sample comes back and it was negative, then, you know, it's a bit of a false alarm or whatever. Benn, whatever he does now, is going to have that stigma attached. But they could still sell that fight, you know, as they always do. I think it's going to be tainted a little bit. There's going to be question marks around it, but it could still be done later on. And I think that's what they're kind of hoping for. But yeah, of course, I'm completely shocked by all of this coming out. But, oh, excuse me, Shepherd's Pie is just coming to say hello. Yeah, of course, I'm shocked by the fact that this has come out with Conor Benn. But the fight, I've heard other YouTubers say this as well. Like, the fight did always have this kind of feeling of it wasn't going to quite make it. I thought it was going to be the weight cut that stopped it, but they got over that. And it was just, I don't know, it always had that aura to it. And, it, you know, it's come true. But yeah, gutted. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. How should they proceed? Do you still want to see the fight regardless? You know, just let me know your thoughts about the situation. But please do as well, like and subscribe. I'm enjoying making these videos. And if you're enjoying watching them, show me some love. Anyway, thanks for listening. Good night.